Awesome. Well, Tony and Chelsea, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Of course, thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
us.
So the thing I like to start with on this podcast, whichever one of you would like to do this, I like to know your personal heavy metal history. So like those records and bands that got you into the genre. And I'm not really an elitist here, so even if there's some non-metal influences in there, which I feel like are very apparent on your records, I would love to hear those as well.
So, me first. Okay, so going back to like my teenage years, I think being exposed to like Lamb of God and like Slipknot at a young age, and then I was like super into Avenged Sevenfold. And this is like when I'm like 12 to 14 age range. My brother and I would like bond over metal music. That was our thing. Um,
Nice.
and I think the first like more black metal leaning band I saw was Behemoth, and
Oh
it
yeah.
was like a pretty life-changing performance. It was really wild. There was like it started raining during their set. It was an outdoor festival and it started raining in July. It was very bizarre. It was very cool. Very Behemoth. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was my early days of metal, I'd say.
Nice. Tony, what about you, man?
Mine might be a little longer.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, like when I was in junior high, which was like 1997, 98,
Mhm.
like that was like the new metal time. So there was like Korn, and I was into Nine Inch Nails. And then I had a friend who listened to a band, Cradle of Filth, and then I
Oh
was
yeah.
introduced to that. And then that kind of just like made me throw away everything else and just go like, I guess I like extreme metal now, and kind of explore everything from there. But Cradle Filth would have been my like intro band into more extreme metal. And then it kind of I got into the more atmospheric death metal, like Morbid Angel and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then this was the early days of like, file sharing, like Napster and things like that. So used like early internet and got into like the Norwegian black metal stuff, and then the more melodic Swedish black metal stuff like Lord Belial and Dawn and things like that. Um, then when I started playing guitar, it was really more like progressive death
Mhm.
metal, like Death and Cynic and Atheist was kind of when I first started playing. But I always kind of gravitated back towards more like black metal centric or adjacent kind of music, and just kind of explored different heavy genres over the years, from some mathcore stuff like Dillinger Escape Plan or Between the Buried and Me and things like that.
Nice.
But always come back to something that is related to black metal in a way. Like that's just kind of what always pulled me back. So there's a whole bunch of different things in there that are acting as influences in subtle ways. But like I would say like black metal music would be like kind of the main thing that kind of ties it together for me.
Yeah, I'm a very black metal centric listener
Yeah.
myself, and even though Chelsea, I kind of started out like you did with a lot of metalcore, like Lamb of God and everything like that, but then it seriously, same for me, man. I found Cradle of Filth, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is like the craziest shit I've
Yeah.
ever heard. And then you got
Yeah.
to start digging more and more and more, and yeah, man, file sharing changed all that, and
Yeah.
burning CDs with your friends and trading them. I
Oh
was
yeah.
around for the tape trading stuff, but CDs, that was a big one
Yeah. I think
too.
I still have tons of burned CDs. I don't use them anymore. I think they're like uh, peeling, like the data's peeling off of them now.
Yeah.
But
So when did you like kind of start playing guitar, and like was it like something that you had interest in because of family members or something you discovered on your own?
discovered on my own. My family, like music was always a thing. Like
Mhm.
my dad was really into like classic rock and the Beatles and stuff like that. So that's just kind of music that was in my house always. I always liked like whatever music it was. It would be like, oh, there's like this faster part or something in some song, and whatever it was like a popular. But it was like always the part where like, oh, I like this part. like
Yeah.
the faster part that was like more aggressive. You know, I don't have a way to describe it as like a 12-year-old really, but you know, I didn't start playing until I was 20, and it
Oh wow.
was
Wow.
kind of with like Death's individual thought patterns and stuff like that, where you know, hearing that, and I already had been a metal fan for a while, but like hearing that stuff is like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, those early influences with the guitar playing are always like it always kind of starts that way. It's like, oh man, that's kind of what I want to do. And then you eventually branch off and start finding your own like sound and style and play pattern and everything like that from those things, those
yeah,
influences, you know. That's why I start with that because I feel like that stuff's kind of important, even though, people just like, oh yeah, well, I listen to this and that, but those little threads I feel like
right.
connect everything with music, it's important.
Yeah. And then I would, speaking for us both, we like stay like that same level of musical exploration that you have as say a teenager. I don't
Yeah.
think we've lost that. Like we're still constantly looking at, you know, listening to all the new music, new bands, and exploring new genres.
Sharing back and
Yeah,
forth all the time.
yeah. I still
Yeah.
go to like local shows all the time. So
Yeah, you got to, man, to stay in touch with like what's going on around you, and then making friends and contacts and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's all that's very important. It's funny, I was trying to find a delicate way to talk about this, something I ran across that I thought was really funny. Um, being a podcaster and stuff, you kind of have to follow peers in your industry. And I noticed this one guy posted a clip talking shit about the new song and the new album. And I was
oh
just
really?
like, yeah, and he listened to like 20, 30 seconds of the new song and was like, this is bollocks, and like clicked it off or whatever. I was just like, dude, why do you have to take your time to like shit on a band or be that close-minded still when it's like 2025 to be like, this is garbage, listening to 20 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
I haven't even seen that one, so whatever is funny to like record yourself doing that.
I know. And you're like, it's like depriving yourself of like so much stuff to discover, man. Like I'm always same way, like just trying to find new music. I never like
Right.
write anything off or like take time out of my day to go talk shit about a band if I don't like them. Like it seems
Yeah.
just so antithetical to what I want to do with music and this kind of
Right.
avenue, you know?
I mean, there's
Um,
tons of stuff that it's not my thing.
right.
Yeah.
But it's like, why am I gonna make a whole video like shitting on somebody because what they made? But it's that discovery thing, It's like I just happened to see that clip and I was like, man, this guy's not even like giving it a chance, I think if he probably sat down and listened to more than 20 seconds, he might be a little more open-minded. But
Kind of want to see it now.
yeah,
No, I mean, I think with Dawn, it's really important that the listener gives it more than 20 seconds
right?
because we
Yeah.
we
Anything.
write it as an experience, and the first 20 seconds doesn't reflect the whole song for sure. So
No, no, there's
it's
so many like little
sounds very
layers
different.
and yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine doing that with anything. A book, a TV show, a movie, like you got to give it some time to like sink in and really digest it. And then, if you didn't like it, that's fine, move on. But
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know, man, shit talking it. I'll never understand that part of it. But uh, yeah, I just thought that was a funny thing I wanted to bring up since it happened like
I-
a week or two ago, and I was like, oh wow, this is weird timing seeing this.
yeah.
Chelsea, for you, I know this is kind of a cliche question, but like, when did you kind of figure out like you can fucking scream and this is what you wanted to do in a band, you know?
I mean, just being a metal fan for like my entire like teenage years, really, I was like, I think I can. I don't know. I just had this like I was like, I think I can do it. That sounds so stupid, but I was like, I
No,
think I can do it. And I just tried. Um, and like the thing I always say is like, I'm not like a supporter of this band at this point in my life, but like the first band I tried to cover was like As I Lay Dying. And
right.
I like I think Tim Lambesis, even though he's a very controversial individual right now,
Yeah.
but he is a very talented mid-range vocalist, and I think that's like hard to argue. And I think for me, starting in that mid-range was very important because if I had tried to start anywhere else, I don't know that I'd be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
It really was like building my way outwards from that sweet mid-range spot. So um, I started doing that around like kind of late in the teen game, like 17 years old. I gave it a go, and I had like a really lame band with some people, but like we didn't really do anything. So that's why I say it's lame because it's just like a bunch of disorganized people in a room that were playing the same five things they wrote that wasn't going anywhere. So, from there I kind of skipped around and ended up playing with like the band that I stayed with for a while, which was Kinefret, and it's a melodic death thrash band.
Mm.
And most of the members were from Iran, and then I was the American part, I guess. I don't know, but
Only one of them, whatever.
yeah, no, there was Artis and
Oh, that's
Artaker
right.
from Iran,
Yeah.
and then I guess Arion's technically from Sweden,
Oh
and
wow.
then here. So yeah, it was like an interesting, very interesting band. I learned a lot. I'm very thankful that I was able to do that because it led me eventually to working with Tony in a different band, and then him and I just like breaking off and co-creating, and like here we are years later. So yeah.
So the thing also with that, your range is so extensive with being able to sing clean parts and do the lows and the mids and everything. Was there any training that you did to do that, or you just like experimented on your own in that
I just
time
like
of like trying those ranges?
Yeah, it was really a lot of experimentation on my own. Like I never took formal lessons or anything. It
Mm.
was really just like hearing, like listening really intently to different vocalists and then like thinking like what they were doing with their mouth. And then I would like watch people with their mouth, like with their tongues, like pushing it through your mouth or whatever you're doing. And then I would just try to emulate and eventually I just kind of made my own voice and ran with it. So, but yeah, definitely a lot of just curiosity. Very curious person.
So I want to ask about guitars. What are you playing in the video? Is that an eight string, man?
No, it's a seven string. So
Oh, okay. I
there's
couldn't tell
there's
because it was
a
like a little
yeah
not blurry, but the way the colors and everything kind of go over it. It's like, man, that might be an
yeah
eight string.
there's a small builder in Idaho
Uh,
called Drum and Rock Fudge, and he doesn't. It's more like kind of like in between a hobby with him. He still works a day job, but he'll do like really wild guitar ideas. Like he's just down for doing anything. And I was like, oh, I kind of want a guitar with a whammy bar because I don't have one, but I want it to
okay.
be dive only because I've broken strings. I don't want my guitar to go out of tune when I'm playing if I break a string. And then he just like, oh, I'll do this. So he made a multi-scale and headless, and it's like made out of redwood, and then it's completely modular, so like the sides can come off, and it's just this really like unique like prototype design that he made. And I like weird guitars and trying new things out. So
Yeah, it was a pretty sick looking guitar, and I watched a bunch of the videos too, and it seems like all you guys play like crazy, awesome looking like headless stuff and uh big six string basses and everything like that to get your sound in that range that you've cultivated. So I love knowing all about that stuff, man. Like gear and everything like that, especially when it's a custom guitar like that. When did the writing kind of start taking place for this record? Because I know you just put one out like 2 years ago. So
right,
pretty quick turnaround feels like, which is great.
pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
Like
Oh shit! All right.
I just kind of like one way I practice. Excuse me. Practice
Okay.
guitar is I just record,
Hmm.
like record myself playing. So if there's ideas I like, I have it recorded down, and then I can expand on them later. And yeah, that's just kind of it. It's just always just recording and writing is just part of my practice routine.
So when you have like an idea that's like basically fleshed out, do you just kind of start sharing it with everybody else, or do you compose everything yourself and then have everybody kind of like put their parts into it?
I'll have like a full arrangement probably
Oh
like
shit,
here's the
yeah.
song, and then like usually the full arrangement doesn't change. I would say like 90% of the time, like the arrangement I bring is what it's gonna be, but then other people add their parts. So that adds a lot to the song and changes the feel of it. And
Mhm.
a lot of
So
a lot of times, like things I was imagining with vocals, and it's completely different.
yeah, that was very curious to me because if the way that I understand like the album was written, it was you we're trying to write a lot about like nature and earth and science stuff basically, not to demean it, but for lack of a better term there. And did you have those ideas in mind like as you were writing things, or was it something that kind of came later on down the road when you were like, okay, I have all these songs, what's the record going to be about now?
It's really more
That
my,
usually comes right at
yeah.
the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's more of my area of like, go. For me, I just have always been fascinated by bioluminescence. And this year I got to experience it for like the first time, being
Oh
up
wow.
in the PMW, kayaking at night. So it was like a really breathtaking experience and exciting. And I think writing this album, I was like in a happier frame of mind. So I wanted to write about something pretty and whimsical and more like nature driven. So
So is there like a narrative within the songs, or is it just kind of about each little specific ideal you had?
I mean, the album across the board, even though we named it Bioluminescence, isn't necessarily only about that. It's there's several songs like totally off the wall topics for sure,
Mhm.
um, like just traveling. Honestly, like a song literally about traveling, but like not done straight up the middle, and like, and then we travel so much for
Yeah.
this, and then for other parts of our lives, and it just kind of feels numbing at times. And I think that that's like a weird, unique experience and something that we don't really think about too much in depth often. So, um, yeah, the album's kind of all over the place, but I think it somehow is still maybe our most cohesive. I don't know. Maybe you would disagree.
I like everything we've done.
Yeah.
um, I would say it's the most adventurous in the way that I've approached the songwriting, at least from my side of things. I always try to not do the same thing
Yeah.
uh, that I've done before without sounding like a different band, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
Like
absolutely.
I'll try to avoid doing certain riff types or something, and then obviously there's going to be certain things that would be hard to do away with without losing like the identity of the band. But I try to you know push myself into writing in ways that I haven't done before, while still keeping our core sound.
And I guess that kind of plays more into like you're practicing while writing all this stuff. So was there something during this whole time where you were trying to like learn something and it just happened to work out and get put into a song?
Yeah. I mean, I've always like extended chords and major chords,
Hmm.
and so I tried a lot of new chord extensions, and then I would say on this album, there's a lot more odd time signatures that we haven't used before that I haven't like used in my songwriting before, and I wanted to do it in a way to unless you're thinking about it, you're not going to notice that like, hey, this is song is in an odd time signature. Like
Hmm.
in Bioluminescence, the verse riff is in 5/4, and then the singing pre-solo part and the solo is in 7/8, which are things we haven't done before. But I really wanted to make it to where like someone's going to come in and not notice that.
Yeah. Do you also write all the drumming and stuff yourself?
Uh, we'll use like generic stuff for like the
Yeah.
demo, and then drummer expands on that and
Okay. I was gonna say, man, the drumming on this record, man, the syncopation with everything is incredible. Like it gives a
Yeah.
whole another layer to everything that's been written when you're like hearing those drum patterns and it's tight. I mean, those
Yep.
some of those patterns are just like, what the fuck? You know, I was listening to because I've had the record for a few days and getting through it, and man, yeah, your drummer's incredible. Like seriously,
Yeah, he's been really fun to work with the last three albums, but it is his last with us just because he
Yeah.
had a kid. So
oh
it's,
well,
it's kind of
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you can't have
Yeah.
it's just difficult
Yeah.
with this level of
yeah,
intensity, you know?
yeah. I can't imagine trying to be gone 9 or whatever months out of the year to and raise a kid at the same time. So, uh, yeah, priorities, man. I get
But
that.
no. Yeah. He was a great band member, did 3 albums, fucking killed it on all three.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, people have different life directions and,
yeah, of
Yeah,
course. We're gonna
but
be supportive of that.
yeah,
He's still our homie.
yeah.
So
yeah, yeah.
But we have a new drummer who we're working with, and him and I have already kind of started exchanging ideas. So
he's
pretty
Oh,
excited
nice,
about
man.
yeah,
we're always on the cycle or we don't stop.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
The
several
cycle,
bands.
man. Like people that listen to records always expect bands to be on that kind of like cycle. Like, oh, they put out something every year, every 2 years, or they do an album, then an EP, then an album and an EP, and it's just like, do you guys ever feel pressured by that, or is it just something that like, we'll make it when we make it kind of deal?
I would say in a band that performs live, there's
Mhm.
definitely more pressure in that because you kind of need people to be like on people's minds for when you go out and tour. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
more pressure in that case. But like with our other band, Kalish Calling, we've never performed live, and then my other band, Botanist, we don't perform live very frequently. And then
Oh wow.
there's not a lot of pressure to do that. It's just kind of
As we can.
as we can.
Yeah.
But we don't want to lose. We don't want to put out anything we're not completely proud of. So
We try to hold
yeah,
ourselves to tight
yeah, yeah.
deadlines and like be super ambitious with Dawn of Ouroboros for sure, more than the other bands that we're in.
Yeah, but without half-assing
Yeah,
anything right now.
exactly. We're like many nights
Yeah,
in studio where we're like kind of losing our mind a little bit, but we're making it happen. And magic happens when you're like losing your mind in the middle of the night writing something. So
Yeah, it's a good segue. I was gonna ask about the recording process. So as far as when you demoed everything out and have everything ready to go and written, what does that next step look like for you guys when you're ready to start recording? Like, give me some insight into that end of it because I
uh,
love hearing about that too.
we usually start with drum recording. That is like our first thing, just because if there are any changes, it can really affect other people's performances.
Mhm.
Um, and if we really like to give the creative freedom to the drummer that if he does want to change things, he's like empowered to do that. As long as we're not like, oh, that's terrible, which has never happened, But yeah, but we're totally open to changes on the spot and in studio last minute. Like I change stuff
yeah.
constantly. I think maybe Tony does some of them.
Usually not.
Yeah, he's more like logic brained than
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think me for sure.
when I present something, it's usually like I
I
like
got it.
this,
Already
but
done all his playing
but
around.
there's still cases where I have changed things like at the last minute, but usually I have worked out what I'm gonna do pretty well in advance.
I like to tell Tony to change things. Just very, very kindly.
For the first single, Bioluminescence, the verse riff, I had something different
Uh-huh.
pretty much to the end, and she didn't like it,
And I'll
and
sing to
then
him
I
like
changed it, and
this, la,
it
la, la.
what I changed it to is much better, so it was
Oh
good.
wow.
Yeah,
Then yeah, I'm like, and then we do bass and guitars, and I'm the anchor that goes in and does all the vocals. I write all the choirs, harmonies, form all those. I'll add like layers here and there, just like trying to dazzle it up.
Yeah.
Um, you know, synth stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm more of the design nerd.
Do
So
you typically like, are you guys like pretty meticulous in the studio where it's like you gotta like perfect every little thing, or you just kind of like, well, I think we got this thing in a good place, and anybody else that's gonna listen to this isn't gonna notice the stuff we're gonna notice, kind of deal.
I try to be as meticulous as I can.
Yeah.
Um, some things I feel if I'm too meticulous, I'm like that doesn't sound right, and then I'll just go in, just like slop it up, and I'm like, okay, that sounds how it should sound. But
So you're like pretty hands on when like that like the mixing and everything are kind of going through the recording.
yeah, I mean, I do all of my guitar recording myself,
Okay.
and
Nice.
vocals were kind of half in the studio and half at home in this case, and
Okay.
then drums were done in a studio. And yeah, and then as far as the mixing process, the engineer we had mix it lives in the UK, so that was kind of he would do his thing, and we would communicate through a file sharing software and maybe some verbal communication in the morning, and
yeah.
then just kind of back and forth over the internet that way for the mixing process.
Was that kind of difficult or go pretty smoothly even with the time difference and everything?
I think it went smoothly. And then I think with this person in general, I feel more capable of getting a result out of my first explanation than I've experienced in the past. So
Oh
like I
wow.
could ask him, I could just say something like, oh, throw a reverse swell on this, and like he'll do it exactly how I was imagining, which is like not something I've really locked in with like another sound engineer or producer before. So
Yeah, that's I mean that's got to be important because you want the record to sound like what's in your head, and if you're trying to
yeah,
explain it to this person, it's like and they're not capturing that. It's got to be a little frustrating sometimes to be like, well,
Mhm.
wasn't quite what we
yeah,
were going for. But yeah, that's amazing to hear that he was just able to pick up on that so quick. That's great. Sound of good engineer right there.
I definitely really excited to continue working for sure.
Nice. Was it a pretty quick process? Like how long did you guys take throughout all that, like doing everything?
Like it's kind of a
Uh,
blur.
the recording usually takes like getting yeah, recording and all that takes can take a few months. Everybody has day jobs and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And then I think once we did the mixing took like 2 to 3 weeks to
Okay.
do the mixing, and then maybe like another week for the mastering with a different engineer. But
Yeah.
yeah, it took a couple months to get everything.
Wow. So by the time that you've written everything, gotten it recorded and done, about how many times do you listen to all these songs? Or like, are you just ready to play them all live? Are you sick of them? Like, how are you feeling about it now, having to listen to it probably a lot?
Oh, I don't even know how many times I've listened to them. Since we're going to start performing these live,
Yeah.
the amount that I'm listening to them currently has increased again. But yeah, I mean, there is a period where like once it was finalized, mixed, and like, okay, this is the final mix, final master. Yeah, took took maybe like a month or two of not listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it helped that we went on tour pretty much right after we wrapped up. It was
Oh wow.
like we got to go out and play for a month. And like it kind of felt like the reward for all the hard work. It was our goal to deliver it before we went on tour
Hmm.
because trying to do any of that out on the road would have been, I don't think it would have been the same result just because we'd be so tired and maybe not thinking as straight as we could. So, not having fresh ears, tinnitus going wild.
Oh yeah. Something I was curious about, I was reading in the press thing that I got sent. When you were writing the lyrics and everything, they were kind of like free form, from what I was understanding. Can you
A lot
explain
of
that a
them
little bit
were
more?
pretty, yeah, a lot of them were pretty free form. Like, I think with me, I really like to do a bit of improv on like everything. And some songs I will listen to ahead of time and I'll go, yeah, no, I'm not even gonna bother pre-writing for this at all. Like, I'm just gonna do it on the spot. And like, I think I have a lot of fun. It's kind of stressful, but like I have a lot
Hmm.
of fun doing that. Um, which will be like one of the things I think I miss the most about it's like working with this new producer. I'm gonna be flying into the UK going forward, and it's like I can't take off infinite time to like go do that and then also
Yeah.
tour and everything else. So I'm gonna have to definitely cut back on some of my improv for sure, or leave
You
it
just have
for
a framework.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't be as silly goose about it. So yeah. Um, but yeah, just a lot of changing stuff on the spot. Half the time I go back and I'm like, oh crap, what was I even saying there? And I have to like decode what I was saying. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's got to be a fun way to write though. Just kind of like just straight out of your brain, like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
more authentic. Not that it wouldn't be either way, but it's very I've never really heard of anybody doing that before. So I was like, what? That's cool. I got to ask about that. Um, so yeah, that's amazing that that's kind of how you approach this record with that. So okay, so now everything's done. It's coming out in March, and you guys are going to be touring.
Mhm.
Are you going to be playing like the whole record? Are you going to mix it up with everything from, all the records over
Right.
the years? Like, what's the plan with that? You don't have to give me the whole set
It's
list. I'm just, you know,
it's pretty much the whole record, and then with one
cool.
or two older songs, but mostly this record.
I actually wanted to talk a little more about guitar stuff, man. Like, I don't, are you
Sure.
like a big gear guy? Like, I kind of like knowing about that stuff, like,
Uh,
pedals, amps, not giving away
yeah.
your whole setup and all that, but I'm
I
curious
mean,
about how you get some of
it's
those
really
soundscapes.
so I would say a lot of the soundscapes would be more with the synths I use. I like Omnisphere,
Hmm.
and then I use I can't remember the exact name. It's one of the East West packages, but it's I like classical instruments from East Asian music.
Oh, wow.
I'll work that in there. And as far as my guitars, pretty much just seven string, digital for live. On the albums, we still use tube amps and cabs, but live, I'll use a quad cortex for my rig going into a power amp, and then I have that going into a custom cab I have through Arachnid Cabinets, which is a California cabinet builder.
Okay, nice.
I tend to lean towards because I use a lot of chords that
Yeah.
a lot of clashing overtones can develop if you're using too much distortion. So
Yeah.
I tend to use a little less distortion that would be common with uh, most like metal guitar tones. Still enough where I can do like chunky riffs if needed and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Is it different for like your leads and like the solo bits you do?
Leads, I kind of like a smoother fusion tone as far as the
Okay.
leads I do. So I like a lot of clarity in pretty much everything, lead and rhythm. But
Yeah.
there's different things you would do as far as setting up an amp with like a clean, smooth lead tone and then a highly distorted rhythm guitar tone that has like good note separation and chord clarity.
And is that something you with too in the studio when you're like doing your dubs or things like that? Like maybe have you ever like recorded a part on like with one sound and be like, that doesn't quite like
Right.
fit and change it around?
That I can really think of. There's certain like some stuff on a record, like I'll have like a really ambient clean lead or something, and then I had eight different reverbs on that, and that's just not really
Shit.
possible to do with like a digital modeler. Even if I had a traditional pedal board, I would need eight different reverb pedals. But so there's some compromise in those cases where I'll use one reverb, but turn up the mix of it versus the dry signal or things like that. But
Okay, sweet. Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering is little
yeah.
things like that, little intricacies in there in the music. When I'm talking to somebody about like how they write music, it's like just
Mhm.
those little things that maybe your average person listening might not think about, but
Mhm.
maybe now they'll listen to this and be like, oh yeah, well he said he used 8 reverb pedals once on a thing. So I love hearing stuff like that. The art, I want to talk about the art on the cover as well. Do you guys have an idea and then take it to somebody else? How did that come about as well?
I really it was just looking,
For
so
the right artist.
looking for the right artist. Our sound is so varied.
Yeah.
I feel it's a little difficult sometimes to find the right artist without, there's incredible artists that do tons of metal album covers and stuff, and it's just like it doesn't feel like the right style. And then came across Alex Ekman Lawn through seeing him do some other album covers, and I think he does like some book covers and stuff. But he has a really unique style
Nice.
where it's a collage style of art, and I think he makes the art digitally, but then in a lot of cases for his art exhibits, he will like print the layers out on some like a thick paper, and then he makes three-dimensional versions
Oh,
of his
what?
art.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you can see some of his art exhibits, but they're all like fully three-dimensional and stuff. But really, we just kind of told him the concept and let him hear one of the songs, and he kind of nailed it,
Came up.
in
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
Gonna say this, the search for the right artist, so that's like the lengthiest
Yeah.
part for sure.
Choosing that album cover is important because you don't want it to, not only you want it to represent the music and you want people to be like, look at it and be like, oh, what is this? Like I'm sure all of us
Yeah.
did that growing up. Like, what is this record cover? The art's
Yeah.
great on it, and you want to pick it up, take it home, listen to it. I can. How long was it like from initial conception to like getting it done? Was it pretty quick?
I, it also took a few months in that case.
Oh yeah,
Um, a lot of these artists that do a lot of album covers, they can have a long line that you kind of have to wait in
yeah.
until, yeah, it's like, okay, I have time to work on your stuff, and then it can take a couple more weeks once they start working on it.
Yeah, and I can imagine too, like collage work, pretty insane when you got to find like all those pieces to make them fit together to make the whole cohesive piece. I used to experiment around with like a lot of that style too. So I love. It kind of reminds me just a little bit of Jacob Bannon, like his kind of like
Mhm.
collage-esque work too. Um, yeah, even the colors, man, like it just captures when you think bioluminescence, it does such a good job of capturing what you think that looks like. So the record doesn't come out for like another month, I believe,
A
or
little
something like
over a
that.
month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
month and a few
Okay.
March
days.
7th. Yeah.
7th. Okay. But yeah, as far as like people buying it and supporting you guys, what is the best way to do that for them to find the record? I know things are kind of different nowadays, with
Right.
Spotify and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on, which region they're located in. There's several different record distributors. If you're in the US, most popular would be Bandcamp.
Okay.
Um, if you're in the EU, or I think even the UK would be through Evil Greed, would
Okay.
be the European store. And then there's other stuff like Indie Merch Store, and
Japan.
and then we have Spiritual Beast is doing a Japan release for this album and our previous one,
Oh,
Velvet
nice.
Expense. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. Seriously, I really appreciate you all doing this. I
Oh, thanks for
will,
having us.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try and get this up like probably a week or two before the record comes out, just to give it
Sure.
some breathing room and people to listen to it. So I'll be sure to tag you all in the clips I put up and everything like that.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. You all have a good rest of your night. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
as well.
You too.
Thanks. Yeah.